I'm gonna go on the fighting news right now on my phone.
Me too.
So
Make sure we're live.
we're live, baby. So what do you call it?
Yeah,
So
we're good.
Matt,
Talk to me. What's going on?
ask Ben what places he's been to, all these martial arts he's trained all over the world.
Ben can hear you. He can hear you.
Well, I want you to get involved, Matt. You know.
Okay. Talk to us. Yeah, I did the whole beginning spiel. Come on now. So Ben, where have you been around the world?
Where have I been? A lot of places. So I obviously, as I said, I started here in Florida with American Top Team. In 2009, I got the opportunity to travel to Phuket and spend 2 months at Tiger Muay Thai, and it changed my life. Like, I don't know what it was. The second I stepped off that plane and the humidity hit my face and I felt like the Thai air and the Thai vibe, I was like, I'm going to move here. I wasn't on that ground 5 minutes and I was like, I'm moving here. I know it. And I spent the 2 months at Tiger Muay Thai and I had a great time. I made a lot of friends with a lot of guys that I still talk to this day. And it's been 11 years, you know?
That's awesome.
And
man.
I luckily got to train pro bono because I was on The Ultimate Fighter. The coach at the time, Ray Elby, had been on like 2 or 3 seasons before me. Some of my old students had vacation there, so we had a little, back and forth, and they hooked me up, and I got super lucky. The deal was if they needed a jiu-jitsu class covered or something, I would do it, and I was more than happy to do so. And I taught a seminar there like 3 weeks before I left. And Brian Ebersol and Benny Alloway attended. And I don't know what happened, but Tiger Muay Thai is very good on social media and marketing. But before that video was even published, I got 4 job offers in the country. And I was like, oh man, this is going to happen. I was super excited. I came home, obviously, because I had to. I owned a condo and a car and stuff. And I fielded a handful of these offers. A former friend of mine was based in Bangkok, and he connected me to the Executive Martial Arts Center, EMAC, and a guy named Nidhi Technotees. Nidhi is the guy responsible for bringing jiu-jitsu to Thailand. And, we chatted, and we sorted out. He offered me basically 6 months to spend in Thailand and coach there. And if we got along, if we liked it, they would keep me on longer. And if one of us were unhappy with the situation, we'd part ways. No harm, no foul. I ended up staying for about 3 years.
Wow.
I loved it there. It was the best place ever,
Yeah. So the fighters at Tiger, had they ever been exposed to jiu-jitsu before?
Yeah. So Ray Elby was the jiu-jitsu and head MMA coach at Tiger at the time. Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt. I believe he has a black belt from Lotus Club. It was out in Southern California. But Tiger Muay Thai at the time was affiliated with Brazilian Top Team. They ended up bringing in Fernando Macochero as their head jiu-jitsu coach eventually. Brian Ebersol had taken over when Ray left. I ended up in Bangkok, teaching in a small gym, maybe 2,000 or 3,000 square feet, and really focusing on the Thais and introducing the Thais to jiu-jitsu. My gym was 90% Thai. And it was really cool. It helped me learn the language. It helped me make a lot of local friends and understand culture and stuff. And it was fabulous.
I was going to ask you about that. How was the language barrier? Like, how were you able to teach?
Man, everyone for the most part spoke some English. So Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Thailand is an affluent hobby. Most things are inexpensive. It's 30-something baht to the dollar. You can eat a full meal for $1.25. So to pay $100 or $125 a month to train jiu-jitsu is quite the expense.
Right.
It's the equivalent of your food bill for the month.
Yeah.
Keeping in mind that the national average income or the national minimum wage was $10 a day. You're working 10 days just to play jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? So most of the people that went to my classes were, if not affluent, middle class. They all went to decent colleges and they all spoke English. So it wasn't that hard. But because of that, and I think I'm a guy, if I'm going to Thailand and I'm going to stay there for a long period of time, it's important that I learn Thai, adapt to the culture you're moving into, right? It's the respectful and the courteous thing to do. So I busted my ass to do it. I I learned the most Thai from a Turkish guy. Surprisingly, he was one of my students, and he would always hang out late and help me learn new words and stuff. And we'd go out, and he'd show me how to use it in public and stuff. And I was by no means fluent, but I could order food, talk to a taxi driver, basic conversation, a little bit of flirting, all that you really need to get by.
Not with the lady boys.
Dude, some of them were unbelievable. You wouldn't understand.
That's why they call it Bangkok.
Hey, it's not Bangkok, honey. So while I was in Thailand, I was lucky enough to connect with John Nutt. If you're not familiar with John Nutt started Full Metal Dojo. Full Metal Dojo is Thailand's premier MMA event. We started working together when it was Dare Fight Sports. John and I were very active. Mostly, I would say we had free time, so we wanted to really push MMA. But keep in mind, at one point in time, MMA was illegal, meaning someone in the region with a lot of money paid someone to say it was illegal, but did no legal paperwork. Right? So it took like 3 years of the Dare guys spending money to find out that it wasn't illegal, and we could do shows legally. When that happened, John and I were like, hey, let's go. And they just weren't having it. So John broke off and brought me with him and started Full Metal Dojo. If you're unfamiliar, watch them. It's awesome. Full Metal Dojo is like an underground party scene with fights. It's crazy. Wow. It's like living an 80s action movie. It's unbelievable. John does an amazing job. John is also the voice of Lethway World Championships. He's on Fox Sports Asia. He's got a show on Fox Sports Asia, Eat, Pray, Fight. Check him out. He's unbelievable. I call him the Duke of the expats, because if you are an expat and you are in any way, shape, or form involved in fighting, you know John Nutt. John Nutt knows you, and he is your connection to like the wide scheme of MMA in Southeast Asia.
Nice.
I know we were talking about travel, but
do they throw money around in the audience? Do they bet on the fights as they're happening?
So here's what's strange, at least with Muay Thai. Gambling into Kingdom of Thailand is 100% illegal, except in the sectioned off gamblers' quarters of the stadiums. So if there are fights, there is gambling, period. But to gamble outside of that is illegal. It's still done. Asian culture is very heavily based in gambling. I remember there was a house on my soy when I was in Phuket that had hundreds of bird cages just hanging around. And I remember asking, like, why? And gambling is so embedded. Guys would bring their birds together, and someone would have, like, a tuning whistle, and they'd blow. And whichever bird could replicate that note, that owner won the money.
Really?
Yeah. Insanity. Like, they're just betting on a note, dude. Like, what?
Gotta make money somehow, man.
Hey.
We need to start doing that now. Shoot.
That's funny, man.
Hey, Matt, I think the under-over of Gerardo shaving his beard before 2020 was June, wasn't it?
Probably.
It probably was.
Who took the over?
I don't know. I took Matt shaving his goatee before Gerardo shaving his beard, so I would.
Goatee people never shave, bro. It's there for a reason.
Yeah, it's not going. But I tell you, I looked at the picture that we put on the story today, and I'm like, is that gray hair that I see on the sides? I'm like, I'm starting to look like friggin' Paulie Walnuts, I don't see it now. You can't see it now, but I saw it in the picture, and I'm like, nah, it must have been, I don't know, maybe some weird light thing.
Yeah, it was probably the Flash. We'll say it's the Flash.
Yeah, the Flash. I'm going with the Flash. So, Ben, what about, so in Thailand, they start young, the kids training, right?
Super young, typically like 5 or 6 years old.
Yeah. What did you find? Did you find anything interesting about their training? The way that they train, something that might be different or unusual compared to the way people were training here?
It's very simple, to be honest. Like when you dealt with Thai trainers, it's core basics refined ideally to perfection. Yeah. There wasn't anything out of this world in terms of mitt work, lots of jabs, lots of round kicks, tons of teeps. The biggest difference between America and Thailand is without a doubt clinching. For some reason, people here don't clinch, or very few do. It's a very new thing for clinching. You know, I always tried to push it, but there's just only so many hours of business can be open in the day where people will actually show up. You know, but every single day you clinched at least once a day. And I feel like it made a huge difference on my game, on my abilities, my talents in that area. And like,
you're talking about back of the head clinch,
You know,
knee to the stomach.
Yeah, man, all day. Like,
yeah, but it's also, you know, in terms of like a self-defense kind of thing. I mean, that's pretty much, you know, and when I was learning it back in 90, 93, 94, you didn't throw a knee unless you had the guy in a clinch. You clinched the neck first, and then you threw a knee. We didn't practice knees without clinching the neck first.
Yeah, that wasn't until like K1 became a thing, when they banned the clinch rule because of Wakao.
Yeah. Well, I know I know it's not legal in some, you know, in some styles or whatever, but that's just the way. That's the way we did it, you know. Same thing with the round kicks. The rear leg kick was always, you know, your hip was completely turned over, and you were angling the kick down, you know, as much as you can, unless you were going, you know, for like a headshot or whatever. But if you were kicking to the shin or to the leg, it was always on a downward angle.
Yeah. So sorry to interrupt. Sorry to cut. I'm trying to share the interview stream, and it's not the link above. Do I just send them to thefightingnews.com?
It's on send them to Facebook and YouTube. Facebook.
Oh, just tag the
Facebook page. Yeah.
Okay.
Is it going to YouTube, Steve?
Yeah, both. But YouTube is delayed a little bit more than Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you go to Facebook, it's /The Fighting News. So Facebook.com/The Fighting News, and you can share the stream anywhere you want.
I had shared the link above, and that would like bring people in as
guests.
Yeah. So sorry.
That's all right.
Bring him on now. My bad.
You want to bring on JR? Who's JR?
I don't know offhand.
He drives that truck. You see.
It's a big old truck. I have an idea, but I'm not totally sure.
Have you been in the back of that truck?
No, sir. But I live in North Palm Beach.
He knows you. He knows you.
Bro, I wanted to ask you, man. So obviously you're a coach and you coach a lot of amateurs and professional fighters. What's it like coaching them from the corner? Like, do you have adrenaline? How does it go? How do you keep your mind steady and all that? What's that experience like? Man,
when I first started, it was an adrenaline dump. Like, I mean, it's still an adrenaline dump, but obviously after cornering, I would say close to like 1,000 fights, you know, it's not as much of an adrenaline dump. I understand that this is business and I have a job, and my job is to communicate. Now, as I'm sure you've seen, I talk a lot, you know?
Yeah, your voice is very distinct in the corner. Yeah.
I was working a fight in Tampa. I was cornering Caleb Williams. His mother, stepfather, girlfriend at the time were all in the back, and my wife were in the back. And they were like, afterwards, they told me they could hear me over the whole crowd, you know, just clear as day. And I'm like, sweet. And I thank my bar mitzvah for that, because that's where I learned how to enunciate.
Hey, there you go. I think your voice is very, you know, you could tell your voice, not to make it sound wrong, but it pierces through the sound. You know what I mean?
You see this pointy nose, man? It's very nasally, and it gets out there, and people can recognize it.
Hey, that's all that matters, though. That's all they need to do.
Man. I work a corner. I try to keep it very simple, very, very like business. Like, a lot of guys that I've cornered over the years are not Selzer. I knew it was you. I thought it was you. I saw that truck and I was sure it was you. Sorry. I've cornered a lot of guys over the years that I was not their everyday coach. I was their 1 or 2 times a week coach. Either we're in private lessons or they just they did a class that I taught at a gym 1 or 2 times a week. And as the years went on, I realized it's very hard to have codes unless you work every single day and you can get those codes in their head. So I just keep it very basic. And I know there's a lot of coaches out there that are like, hey, if you just yell jab cross, then the other guy hears it too. And they do. But if they didn't prepare for the jab cross that we worked or how we throw it, it doesn't matter. You still got to be alive in the moment and react to it. So if I yell, use your jab more, hey, what coach doesn't? But it's something that we have worked on specifically. So when I say use your jab more, my fighter knows, this is what he wants.
Would you say the fighters listen? Let's say they're in the middle of the fight. Do they listen to the coaches? Because oftentimes I hear like both of their corners yelling stuff and they're doing none of it,
No, I learned early on. So I was very lucky to come up under the people I did come up under with, Conan, Laborio, Pahumpa, etc. And I was lucky enough to work a lot of corners with Pahumpa. He took me under his wing relatively early. I spent a lot of time with him, and I know his style very well. So when I work a corner with him, or let's say the first time I worked a corner with him, he just told me, he goes, you do striking, I do jiu-jitsu. Done. No confusion, no questions. If I have something to say during jiu-jitsu, I lean over to him and I just make a suggestion. I wouldn't tell him to say anything. I just go, hey, the left leg's open. Or, hey, he underhook on the right side. And he takes care of that. But for the most part, obviously, he's Pahumpa. He's amazing. I don't have to do that, But I learned early on that, you cover your area. If it's not your area, shut up. I'm lucky that, again, I've been trained by the guys I've been trained with, so I can cover all areas. So oftentimes I'm a one-man wrecking crew, for my personal guys.
That's really cool insight, bro.
It is kind of difficult. I've had guys. Say again?
Tell us about some of the fighters that you've worked with over the years.
Man, let's see. So when I was in Asia, I got to work with Shannon Wirichai, would be probably the biggest name that I worked with over there as a regular steady client. But I never cornered him because he would always finish his camps at Tiger Muay Thai, and so the coaches from Tiger Muay Thai would travel with him. I was his home base coach. He would do camp in Phuket. When I left Thailand, I got to go to Colorado and work with Mark Fiore. If you're not familiar with Mark Fiore, he's a former Olympic wrestling coach. He was Robbie Lawler, Matt Hughes wrestling coach. He was the head wrestling coach at Militich Fighting Systems in the early 2000s and late 90s, I do believe. In Colorado, we had a handful of big names, but when I was coming in, he was kind of going out. It was like his 4th or 5th neck surgery, and I pretty much worked with the locals. From there, I went to Germany, and I got to work at MMA Spirit. MMA Spirit is fronted by Muhammad Ali. If you're not familiar with him, he was a Muay Thai fighter in Holland. I believe he's Moroccan-Dutch or Moroccan, straight up. I'm not 100% sure. He held a lot of Muay Thai titles in Europe. He spent, I want to say, like a year and a half or 2 years at American Top Team before moving back to Europe and joining up with MMA Spirit. There, I got to work with some names like Danny Vachel, who was a Bellator 145-pound tournament winner, the former light heavyweight M1 champ Stefan Putz, tough contender Vlado Sikic. They're a young prospect, a guy who's still fighting now, real promising. Attila Kormakaz, I believe is how you say his last name. Lots of really high-end guys over there. Then I came back to Florida, and my plan was honestly to go back to Asia. In Asia, I had a bit of accolade. I had a little reputation under my name, and it gave me some sway, a little pull. But I was brought up with the offer to start American Top Team Palm Beach Gardens, which was my long-term goal, to open up a gym and start bringing up guys myself in a home base. And so I jumped on it.
Who contacted you for that?
Roger Kral.
Okay, so we know Roger.
Yeah. So Roger reached out to me. He knew I was planning on moving back, and he grabbed me pretty quick. And he's like, "Hey, one of my guys, a guy that I came up with, is kind of bouncing this idea around. Why not check it out? Yeah. Why not take advantage?" And I went to Jupiter. Florida, and I liked the really chill vibe. And the plan was to open up there. It reminded me of Colorado Springs with nice weather and beaches. It was very laid back, small town feel, and I really dug it. And I jumped on it. And here we are 5 years later. I coach a handful of guys, starting from amateurs, new pros, all the way through UFC contenders. My most prominent name at the moment is Kevin Siler. If you're not familiar, he is on the Contender for the second time next week. He's 10-0, undefeated internationally. He's a savage, man. He's a terrifying individual to stand across from, even holding pads, let alone in a cage. He will be the second Bolivian in the UFC. His brother, Bentley Siler, was the first. Let's see. Currently, I also train Anthony Michael, known as the Mongoose. He's 6-3. He's out of Michigan. He's been down from here for a couple years. He's a talented 135er. I recently restarted working with Gabe Barletta. He's based in Port St. Lucie. He's a product of Dean Thomas. He spent some time at headquarters, but recently moved back up north. COVID changes everything for people.
Yeah.
So I see him a couple times a week. We have Keith Speed. Speed's a very promising.
So we know Gabe Barletta. So let's talk about Gabe.
Yeah.
So we saw him in Rise.
Mm-hmm.
He won his first fight with Rise and lost his second fight with Rise, right?
Yes, sir. Choked out Benny Alloway in the first round with 10-finger guillotine, and then a cut stoppage for the second one against Sean Brown.
Right.
Delgado.
Yeah.
Oh, that was that was underground, right? That was before.
Yeah.
Right?
Before the name change.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Was that okay, Ben? Was that not the bloodiest night of MMA that in South Florida history, or what?
So I was super upset with Gabe that night. So as a cut man, you guys got to understand how expensive some of our equipment is. So about 6 months before that fight, adrenaline was stopped being produced generically. It was only being produced by a single company. So to buy a bottle of adrenaline with insurance was $270.
Wow.
It used to be $2. So when I was working that cut on Gabe, his coaches were I wasn't working his corner. I was working as a cut man. I didn't really train him for that fight. We worked once or twice together, but his corners were his corners. I was just a cut man, right? And I was working that cut, and everyone was kind of in his face. Just throwing a lot of information. He was like, "Get off of me!" And he dumped like $200 of adrenaline all over the mat.
Oh, get out of here!
So upset.
Wow.
But man, that was an unbelievable fight. Like, it was super bloody. It was super. What a battle, man! Like, props to both of those guys. Really, just getting after it, dude.
Yeah, Sean's a good guy too, but I mean, all the fights on that card were bloody.
Man, it was awesome.
The cage.
Great cards, man. I was really bummed like when they had to make the name change. I liked underground cage fighting, but hey, Rise is doing great stuff too.
Yes, definitely.
I look forward to what they're doing. Doesn't Gabe have a fight coming up soon?
I believe Gabe has a fight like 10 days after Siler. So I think it's the 12th or the 14th out. I think it's Kentucky or Memphis.
Are you flying out for that too, or
no? I'm not going with him on that one.
You have double quarantine from your wife if you go there.
I mean, now that I know that she's going to quarantine, I might as well, right? Just add a week to it. Why not?
It's a whole month, man.
I think he's going out with Daniel Donaldson.
Cool.
Been doing his primary coaching up in PSL.
And who's Siler going up against in the Contender Series?
Siler is fighting Ken Cross. He's out of Michigan top team. He's 10-3. He trains with Darren Cruikshank, so he's got a very karate-ish style. He's very athletic.
Those guys could be tricky,
Yeah, man. Look, there's no dig on the guy. He's 10-3 for a reason.
Yeah.
He came up in Lights Out Fighting with Matt Frendo. I know Frendo through Goose. Goose fights for Lights Out. So there's a little crossover in there. Goose has been an awesome training partner in that he doesn't share on either side. He is here. He's based here. He's happy to get in work. And he, like, as a fan, he seems very excited. He's like, dude, I know both of these guys. This is going to be so cool. I personally think Kenneth Cross is overlooking Siler. He said in an interview a couple days ago that he's going to knock Kevin out in the first round. That's a big claim for an undefeated guy at 10-0.
How do you feel with Kevin going up a weight class though? Because this is, I believe this is his second fight, right? So how do you feel about that?
He took a fight in Bolivia at 155. I want to say like 4 months after the last Contender stint.
Oh, so it's recent. Okay.
Yeah. So July, I think like 19th was 1 year from his last Contender show.
Mm-hmm.
About 6 months after his initial fight, he fought at 155, just kind of trying it out. There was a lot of opponent juggling, so that definitely played a role into it. But man, at 155, Kevin is a hitter, dude. He is a hitter. That extra 10 pounds of weight makes a difference. Kevin was never a body. He wasn't ever jacked, big shoulders, huge pecs. He has the look of an everyman, but he's terrifying. The pressure never stops. Dude, you're never gonna get away from him.
You're never gonna get away from him.
He's gonna crawl inside
He's
you.
gonna crawl inside you and
High five, Gerard. I don't know who's getting it.
Me too.
I get
that block.
Very nice, very nice.
But yeah, Cross is talking to him, man. He's right in Texas with that out. And he's gonna have a hard time catching. People don't know Kevin Siler. They don't understand the kind of savage that he is. Like the pressure never stops. He's gonna get in your face and he's gonna fuck you up. He is terrifying. Like he's built for this shit. Like
When's the last time he fought down here? I don't
know if he's fought in Florida in a couple of years. I know he started here as an amateur. Bentley came over first, and Kevin came over a year or two later when he turned 18. I think it's been 8 years since he moved to America. He goes home back and forth. But
I was looking at his Tapology the other day, and he actually fought Cleveland McLean, and he beat him. I think that was his first fight. Yeah. You guys know him.
Cleveland McLean going up 20 pounds, dude. I mean, maybe it was before he went 125, but still.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely tune in for this Contender fight. They made it the first fight of the season for a reason. They really, really liked Kevin last time, but he missed weight by a couple pounds, and they basically told us, hey, we can't give you a contract because you missed weight. But Dana White was giving him a standing ovation after that fight. They were
beating the crap out of him, man. He was
116 significant strikes in the first round alone.
Jeez.
Yo, can't wait to see that, man.
You remember when Joanna had the swelling on her head?
Yeah.
So did Lance Lawrence.
Hematoma?
Lance Lawrence had a hematoma the size of my fist coming out of his forehead. By round 3, I was just telling him to just pop it. Throw elbows at that bitch. Slice that shit open. Because as soon as that thing pops, the fight's over. There's too much blood.
Sweep the leg.
It's like Total Recall. Quaid. With that big old.
Yeah, man. If you guys do not have ESPN Plus, start the free trial Tuesday at 8 p.m. Be ready. Fight of the year candidate, without a doubt. Most likely, a bloodbath. a fucking slaughter. Kevin Seiler is going to tear you open, crawl inside you, and kill you from inside. He is a
Damn.
monster.
And they're doing Ben. They're doing a competition, last man standing.
I mean, if they are, I'm unaware.
I'm asking you. How do they work it? How do they just?
It's the contender. Man. It's basically the UFC goes, hey, we like you, but we want to give you a tryout first.
Right.
So we're going to give you a hard fight. And if you do well and you entertain and you create the kind of product that we like, we'll offer you a contract.
Right.
If we're not totally sold, we'll bring you back a second time. And if not, try again in a couple years, you know?
Did you have any fighters on the last XFN card, Ben?
No, I did not.
Okay. Did you watch it? They did the combat grappling. They had, it was a King of the Hill tournament. So you had to win 2 fights in a row, you know, so theoretically it could have gone on all night until someone won 2 fights in a row. They just would have kept rotating people in.
Wait, in a row?
In a row, yes. In a
Ugh.
row. So you had to be one guy, like 2 guys fought, then the winner stayed in. And then if he would have won the next fight, he would be the champion. If he lost it, they'd rotate in another guy, and then the winner had to beat 2 people in a row. That was Jonathan Yap.
Yeah.
So there's a chance that no one wins.
There is. It's theoretically it could go on all night. You know, I don't know. I was listening to the rules, and I don't know if we get Danny Kaye on sometime soon. We'll ask him about that. How would it ever end? Because theoretically it could just keep going on and on. But it was interesting. It you know, because the combat grappling, some people kind of tune out during that part of the show.
I mean, as a jiu-jitsu guy, I like jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I like the thought of combat grappling. When Phuket Top Team used to do a combat grappling tournament, which was MMA gloves, no striking on your feet, but closed-fisted striking once you hit the ground. That was my introduction to combat grappling. The current version with slaps, I'm okay with, but guys are slapping while standing. Just fight Pancrase, man. How come I can slap you, but I can't kick you? How come I can slap you, but I can't knee you? If you make it so standing you have to wrestle, awesome. Once you hit the floor, then the slapping begins. That makes more sense. I don't know. And it could also just be the event, because I've really only seen combat grappling live on Titan shows.
Yeah.
But I know with EBI, there's no striking while you stand. It's only when you're on the floor. And that makes a little more sense to me, because the purpose is to grapple, to do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I don't get the smacking. I don't get the slapping. I mean,
as long as you're on the ground, I'm okay with it. But you remember when combat jiu-jitsu first started and Wagner Rocha was like just dominating everybody?
Yeah.
Because he came from MMA.
Yeah.
He had a strike on the floor where everyone else is like, yeah, he's hitting, dude.
No, he's hitting. I've seen pretty crazy hits, man.
A lot of guys that are still starting in combat jiu-jitsu are still slapping guys. They're like finger hitting them. They're giving like rat tails. They're not making contact, you know? I mean, they're making contact, but they're not hitting. They're slapping.
This one that we posted on the Fighting News Instagram, the girl had her in a leg lock, and the only thing she could do was smack her ass.
Hey.
She smacked it like 20 times. It was like,
no complaint. No complaint. It's totally within the rules, guys. It's totally within the rules.
And then a guy took the back part of his shirt, lifted it all the way up, and was smacking him in the back.
You can never grab clothes in jiu-jitsu in no-gi. Like, what are you? Is it a hockey fight?
I don't get it. I didn't get it. The smacking part I don't get.
Yeah, that could have been in someone's backyard too. You know.
Nope, that was on live.
Yeah, but I agree with you, because you can knock someone out with the slap standing up, and then you're never doing jiu-jitsu in the fight.
Yeah, man.
I agree with you there, Ben. That's a good insight.
It's just, look, I'm no one special. It's just what I've seen.
Don't say that, bro. You're special, man. Come on.
Aw, you're so sweet.
You're special too, Gerardo, you know?
Hey, man, my mom tells me that, so I believe it.
What's on the front of your hat, Gerardo?
On the front of my hat, it's the rice hat. I have a rice hat on.
Oh, let's check it out. Oh,
Did you make this one? Oh, that's why you want to show it.
Nice. I like it.
You recognized it because you made it.
I like it. I like
I-
it. No,
you made that. That's nicer than the fighting news ones. Come on.
hey, listen.
No, I like it, man. I like the blue.
I
It's
like the
nice.
blue.
Yeah.
No, I thought he was wearing a Fighting News hat. That's why.
Oh. Yeah, man.
Yes,
But it also
sir.
covers up my face. So I'm gonna put it back up.
Yeah, her. Yes, sir.
You have luxurious hair.
Since
You
we're
should-
doing
Oh, man.
hats,
Thank you, brother. Thank you, man.
You see this?
Yeah,
right
man.
here? Mm.
You're growing it out. You're growing it out. I see, man.
They
Mm.
made,
The
they made
longest
him
it's been
shave.
in
They
years.
made him shave when he went to the Shaolin Temple.
Oh
That was
God! With a head like this, you don't want hair, man. Dude, I got hair like Shirley Temple and Seth Rogen. You don't want that shit growing out.
uh,
I say you do it, man. Give the people what they want,
Go back to metal hair. Just
dude. That would be freaking awesome.
no way. Never ever.
Well,
so you're
look at,
going away. You're going
you know,
away
look
soon,
at,
huh?
look at like Ben Askren. You know, what's he?
Dude. Yes.
You guys think he'll ever come back?
Who knows, man?
No,
he-
no.
He's
no,
young.
No,
He's
no,
young.
He is young,
no.
but he made a lot of money in ONE FC. He has the Askren Wrestling Academy, I believe, out in Milwaukee or the Midwest area. And
Huge
from what I understand,
following.
he's doing very good. There's no reason for him to come back to fighting outside of his desire to compete. But after George and after Damian Maia, like his stock dropped. People are like, oh, he got exposed. And he could still wrestle a ton of dudes to death. But I mean, who knows? I'd watch him. I like Ben Askren. I like his style.
Yeah, so do I. You know.
We didn't see enough of him in the UFC. That's the problem. So
Agreed.
Dana White struggled to put him in, and when he finally did, he got a couple when he fought one of your ATT guys, Robbie Lawler. Did he tap him out? I don't know. Who knows?
So Robbie Lawler was already at Hard Knocks at that time.
Yeah.
if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he started ATT.
That was, dude, who knows? The fact that he survived the first 30 seconds of that fight was amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. I was watching Herb Dean. I saw Robbie Lawler go, "Ugh." And it's not that he put his hand down. It's that his hand went limp. That tells you he's out. The fact that he was like, hey, what the fuck? Like, playing possum is not always the best idea. I can't remember who it was. I think it was a 205er, maybe like 4 months ago, like Balkovic or something. He pretended to be rocked,
Yeah.
and the ref called it off. And he's like, what are you doing? I was drawing him in. And he's
Right.
like, no, you were stumbling with your hands down. That's a TKO, bruh. So if Lawler was, playing possum, it just worked against him.
Yeah.
It was a gamble he took, and it
Right,
It just
but Robbie's face and Ben's face was it was
Oh.
night and day. I mean,
Dude.
who looked like it won?
hard.
Yeah.
I mean, Robbie looked like he killed him.
Dude, it was bad.
Yeah.
What a beating. That was one of the worst 30-second beatings ever.
And the fight could have been stopped then. He was ground and
I was
pounding.
shocked it wasn't. I
Yeah,
was shocked it wasn't. That beating was so bad.
yeah. So and then what was the other fight that he?
He had
and then
Lawler. Then he
Lawler.
had Masvidal.
right,
And then he had
Masvidal. Well, that was a fluke too. I mean, did we get to see him fight? Not really.
If you know Masvidal, that was no fluke.
Yeah.
Masvidal is a straight up gangster. Okay. Masvidal has been underrated hype for a decade. Masvidal is one of the most complete fighters in history. His striking is unbelievable. His wrestling is severely underrated, and his jiu-jitsu is fucking legit. He's got the best jab in MMA. No questions asked. His distance.
He didn't do much against Usman.
Hey, 6 days notice.
6
Firstly.
days notice. Yeah,
Secondly, anytime he got to open space, he
That's an
teed off on
excuse.
Usman. Usman shot scared on Masvidal. Doesn't mean he didn't press him into the fence. Doesn't mean he didn't hold him there. But if Masvidal gets a full camp, the same 4 months Usman got, I think Masvidal eats him alive.
Eats him alive. Like it wouldn't even be competitive.
Man, the only shot Usman has against George Masvidal is to pin him against the fence. That's it. He's not going to do jiu-jitsu with Masvidal.
If you put their records together, it's night and day.
Yeah. Hey,
I mean,
Masvidal got
Usman's lost how many fights?
Usman's lost 1 fight
and
to Jose Caceres in his professional debut.
Right.
Masvidal has 15 losses, but he's got 30-something wins. They're different individuals that come from different timelines. Masvidal is from my era, who's still functionally competing. I think he's 34. I don't know offhand, but he's in his 30s. Usman's in his 30s. Usman had a collegiate wrestling career instead of an MMA career. So be it. This is not a knock on Usman, right? Usman is a very, very talented individual. He's got great basic stand-up and unbelievable wrestling. But he's not the total package, right? He's unbelievably good. He's exceptional at what he does. He's a champion for a reason. There's no doubting that. But George Masvidal is a different animal, right?
So you'd like to see that fight again?
Of course.
George Masvidal with a full training camp.
100%.
But the thing is, we probably won't see it because Burns has that shot first.
Burns
it's already been said. He has that shot beforehand. You know what I mean? So whatever happens with that fight, then I think that's who Masvidal would fight. Yeah, that's what I would like to see. You know,
but it could work out either way. I think Masvidal is lined up for a Conor McGregor fight, a money fight, legitimately. You know,
in the interim, I think that's what they would do. I think
it's a great play. They want Conor McGregor to fight for a title again. What better way by than him possibly beating George Masvidal? I think George kills.
And what title is that for the BMF belt?
170. Because Masvidal just fought for the belt. So if Conor gets lucky and beats him, he'd automatically be in top 2 contention. You know, people making the play for him to get a title shot at 155 after beating Cowboy at 170 was stupid. You don't go up the ranks at 55 by winning a fight at welterweight. That's not how that works. Yeah. Cowboy hasn't been a 155 for years now. He has to fight at 155 and win at 155 to then be considered for title contention at 55. Conor McGregor is pro wrestling, and I'm okay with that because it brings money to the sport, and I'm really happy that it's happening, you know. But for him to get in title contention, he has to fight someone in the weight class he wants to contend at. The only fight for him right now is either for a title, which in all reality should cause a fucking uproar in the fan base because he doesn't deserve a title shot, especially not at a weight class he doesn't compete in. So he has to beat someone top 10, arguably top 5 to get a legitimate title shot. And George Masvidal would be the biggest selling one of those people in the top 5.
For no belt, though.
No, he'd have to fight Masvidal just to fight Masvidal. Winner gets the next shot or a title contender bout.
Makes sense.
You know, both guys, McGregor's been off for a year and a half, maybe. You know, so for him to even be considered for a title fight, he's got to beat at least one guy. I understand that, like, Dana White was very against him fighting George. Oh, George is too big. George and Conor are the same guy. They're 55ers who went up to 170.
Yeah.
They're perfect. Yeah. They should totally fight each other. George deserves the money. Conor needs a legitimate fight. And George will strike with him. So that gives Conor the possibility of landing that left hand. You know, most likely they want to give Conor a more favorable fight so they can make the bigger fights. But I think Masvidal would be the biggest selling fight to date. Masvidal's a fucking superstar, man. He's a legitimate superstar. He's got the talent. He's got the mouth. He's got the style. He's got the vibe. He's got the interview skills. Masvidal, championship or not, is a name in this sport, and he draws. You know, and if they want to make money, Conor versus Masvidal is the fight to make.
Absolutely. I think that's the fight that the fans would want to see the most.
I don't think we'll see it.
I think if we don't see it, it's because they're protecting Conor.
Yeah.
Because they're not protecting Masvidal. Masvidal doesn't want to be protected.
Conor picks and chooses who he wants to fight.
Of course.
He's like partners of that UFC.
I remember, I think it was before the second Diaz fight. He said he wouldn't fight if he didn't get to co-promote. And though he didn't get to co-promote necessarily, he got a huge cut of the pay-per-view buys, and the entire show was sponsored by Proper 12.
Yeah.
So he's definitely got some skin in the game on something.
And he made $100 million.
Hey, my old boxing coach, Howard Davis, said it's really hard to do road work when you sleep in silk pajamas. And hey, Connor's had, 2 wins in 4 years? You know?
Yes, and the Cowboy fight was pretty easy pickings for him, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I love Cowboy. I'm a fan, but he's always had a hard time in the big fights.
Yeah. Well, you can't be an MMA fan and not like Cowboy.
Cowboy.
Yeah, man.
He's
Cowboy.
been around.
So you just mentioned a legend who we used to, go to all his fights. Fight Time Promotion, Howard Davis Jr., whose son now, Daya Davis, is got a boxing gym out in Boca.
The UBC. He just started an event as well.
Yeah, we can't wait for freaking the world to open up again to go to these events. We used to go every freaking month, every single other week to these events. And we're like, I'm dying over here, man.
Yeah, man. Hey, big shout out for Daya Davis.
Man.
Yeah.
Boca Boxing District is an unbelievable gym, and one of the few gyms that focus purely on boxing in this moment. If you are in or near Boca and you want to box, go to Daya Davis. Boca Boxing District, check him out. He's awesome. If you are a boxer and you're looking to fight, check out the UBC. I believe it stands for the Ultimate Boxing Championship. They just had their first show about a week ago, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Nice. What do you think about the newest sport in the fighting game, bare knuckle?
It's not a popular opinion, but I'm not a huge fan of bare knuckle fighting.
Okay, and why?
Let's hear it.
Let's hear it.
ROI, man, return on investment, risk versus reward. If you're going to fight bare knuckle, you have a very, very good chance of breaking your hand, and you have an almost guarantee of lacerations, cuts, and stitches. You have to pay for what you get. As a guy who matches my fighters, I've had plenty of offers for bare knuckle matches, but it's not worth it, man. I'm not looking at an average of 15, 20 stitches with 2-4 weeks out for cuts and possibly a concussion and possibly 4 months in surgery on a broken hand for $1,000. I'm not doing it.
That's an interesting perspective, man. Like, as a coach, as a fighter, that's what you're thinking of. Whereas a fan, I'm like all about it. I think it's freaking awesome, but I can see what you're talking about as well.
Yeah,
it makes total sense.
If they're dropping cash, risk versus reward, man. That's what it's all about. I tell all my fighters, like, I have a general game plan for, producing a fighter, right? It works the same as an amateur as it does as a pro. It just resets when you make the switch. Figure 10 fights, right? The first 5 fights are against varying degrees of dummies, right? Guys that should be relatively easy fights. The first one easier than the 5th one, but it's meant to get you ring time, cage time, used to being under the lights, used to making weight when there's money on the line. It's very different. If you miss weight in an amateur fight, they just go, hey, man, he's 2 pounds over. You still going to take it? And the other kid goes, yeah, of course. As a pro, you're now talking about 10 to 30, maybe 50% of your purse, depending on where you fight. So that's different pressure. It's different stress. It's now a business and an enterprise as opposed to just a hobby, right? Under the light, now your record matters when you become a pro, right? So it's very important to build a fighter up correctly. Now, I don't go as far as, say, boxing does traditionally, where where the promoter or the manager or the fighter pays for their opponent. That's shady. It's not sport. That's a purchased win, right? It's just clever matchmaking. But for your first 5 fights, you should be building. It's building confidence. It's building presence. It's building a fan base. It's building social media. It's a lot more things that go into it as a professional, because again, now this is a business.
Right. And they don't, the fighters themselves, they don't even give a shit about pay. They want to fight for free.
Right.
Yeah,
As
that-
as
I
a
don't-
manager / coach /
Yeah.
representative, I understand that my fighter says yes.
Right.
Right.
All the time. I want to fight. I want to battle.
Fighters
Yeah.
say yes. They're
Right.
fighters. They're
Right.
alphas. There's no one that's going to beat them. They're all in their soul. It says yes. It doesn't matter who it is. It is my job as a coach and a manager for some to make sure that they only say yes to the right question. Right?
Right.
So your first 5 fights are against goobers. Then we start building up to guys who are even or winners, right? If you're 5-0 fighting dummies, your next fight is against a guy who's 3-4. He's won, but he's also lost. After that, we go to like 5-5 or 6-3, like as it goes up. And by the time you hit 10 fights, right, you're fighting tough guys. You should be on an international scale or at least a regionally or coastally ranked position, right? There's no more easy fights after 10 fights. Obviously, if you have some time off and injury, there's warm-up fights and stuff. But once you have 10 fights, it boils down to one thing and one thing only: return on investment. That's it. How much are you paying me for the amount of risk that I'm taking? That's it. You want me to fight a fucking guy with a machine gun? Cool. How much are you paying me? That's it. Once you have 10 plus fights, you should be ready to fight on a world scale. So it's just ROI.
Yeah.
That's it. You know?
Absolutely.
Man. A lot of experience right there in between those ears, man.
Yeah, and we see we speak to some amateurs sometimes, and they're like, "This is it, man. I'm not doing another one of these for free."
Yeah.
You know, they've had a couple of fights under them, and they got winning records or whatever. Like, yeah, they
Yeah,
want
man.
to.
One of my guys right now, Sham Wow Delva. If you're not familiar, his last fight was on the M1 card just before the shutdown. He's a 2-0 pro. He had 18 amateur fights. You know, that's a ton.
That's a lot.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
You know, Goose, Anthony Michael, I think he had like 33 amateur fights. But that's out in the Midwest. Midwest is different. So remember, it is illegal to pay amateurs to fight, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
In the Midwest, it is illegal to pay amateurs to fight still, but you're going to need travel money, right? You've got to get here, right?
Right.
So you need money to get here, right?
Right.
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 You know, like,
So there's
I mean,
always
I
a
don't
way
know.
around it, huh?
yeah, like it's just like selling tickets.
Right.
We're not paying you to fight, but you do get a commission on the tickets you sell.
Right.
True. Mm-hmm.
Where there's a will, there's a way, gentlemen.
Well, you know,
Absolutely.
the bare knuckle fights that we've been to is just like, wow. For a fan, you have 3 things. You got blood,
You got a knockout.
got knockouts,
And you got more blood.
and you got more blood. Exactly.
Yeah, man,
And-
I can see where it's awesome from a fan's perspective.
Yeah.
What I like about it is that it changes boxing, right? Having big gloves. So I don't know if you guys know this. In Thai boxing, punching is virtually unscored.
Right.
If you don't knock the guy down or cut them, it's unscored. That's because I don't know if it was the last king or the king before. He went to college in England and he brought back boxing gloves. Before that, they only fought kachuk, which was hemp rope wrapped around the hands.
Right.
They brought it back in the last couple of years.
With glass, right?
No,
No.
maybe at one point in time. ECW used to do that if you're a wrestling fan. They
Yeah,
called it a
dude.
Thai death match. But because of that, the Thai public and the bettors are the ones who pretty much control the rules of Muay Thai. We're like, oh, you're fighting in gloves. That doesn't do anything. So fuck them. Where before, like when it was Lethway rules, like just hand wraps, or it was kachuk with the hemp rope, punches counted a lot because it was very damaging. But with
Wow.
gloves, they're kind of like, you know? And you see that stylistically, it's very, very different Lethwei fights to Muay Thai fights. The rules aren't so different outside of headbutts and the 3 knockout clause, but
Right.
you know, the punching is very different. You see a lot more like hand striking in Lethwei than you do in Muay Thai. And bare knuckle boxing, if you compare it to like gypsy fighting back in the day or the original Martha of Queensberry rules, the style is very different. Like the fighting Irish guy, like that's a proper stance because his head's further away and his hands are in the way. It's for entanglement for bare knuckles because bare knuckles cut.
Yeah.
You know? So you look at the classic Martha of Queensberry fighting style versus the modern style of boxing, and you'll see great variance. What you're seeing now in bare knuckle fighting is MMA fighters, guys that are very used to fighting in small gloves, now fighting without gloves. Now, note, bare knuckle is specifically bare knuckle. A lot of these events allow tape jobs and braces on the wrist and hand. So the hand is covered and secured up through the metacarpals to hopefully help prevent hand breaking. But that takes away the finesse of a bare knuckle fight because you have to calculate your shots and where you hit so that you don't break your hand. That's part of the classic style of bare knuckle fighting, right? So they're doing the service of protecting the hand without the service of protecting the fighter by virtue of being able to break your hand, right? They want all the blood and they want you to be able to fight every month. So they're allowing you to support your metacarpals, but not your knuckles. You know, it was like Pride would allow tape bumpers and no grease because they wanted cuts.
Yeah.
But they didn't want elbows because that's too many cuts and it's going to stop fights prematurely, right? And there's just stylistically so many differences. And because you're now seeing MMA fighters coming into bare knuckle fighting, you're seeing MMA styled striking. But MMA styled striking isn't boxing. It involves knees, elbows, and kicks. When bare knuckle boxing, it's just hands. So you're getting a lot of overhands and haymakers and wide hooks that are very dangerous for your hands. And it maybe in a couple years where it has developed itself into its own style, just as MMA did over all the years. And then you will get guys that are bare knuckle boxers, not MMA guys fighting bare knuckle or boxers fighting bare knuckle. Like Paul Maggiani when he fought Artem Lobov.
Yeah.
Maggiani is known for breaking his hands in gloves.
Right.
What do you guys think was going to happen bare knuckle, man? You know?
Well, we knew it. You know, that was no surprise to him, man. He knew it was
He wanted to try it. He said, I wanted to try it. And I tried it.
No problem.
It wasn't for me, you know. And that.
Well,
and
he
that
let
was
that
that.
guy get into his head. You know, he let that guy completely work him over mentally, and you know, it became a pride thing for him.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what they're paying guys, but I hope it's a lot. When you look at Chris Lieben and that cut, like on his head, and what's his name? Last name Knight. He's got the wings on his back. Like, dude, I think he didn't get like 37 stitches in one fight. He was cut here and here and here. Like,
Jason.
There better be 5 zeros at minimum at the end of your paycheck, bro. Like,
Well, you know, the main event gets paid big bucks, and everyone else trickles down. You know,
trickle down economics don't work. Everybody knows that. It's been proven.
the last show we went to was at the Hard Rock for BYB Brawl 3 at the Rock. I don't think anyone made over 2,500 on the card.
Bare knuckle, man. I wouldn't sign any of my guys up for that. For that money, for that risk, I would never do it.
Yeah, I mean, they might have made 1,500, so they made $3,000.
Even so, that's something I'm very, 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 very passionate about. The show and win purse is garbage. Prize fighters are prize fighters. If you think in the heat of a moment a guy's going to try harder for more money when another man is trying to kill him, you're fucking wrong. Fighters deserve their entire purse, win, lose, or draw. This is a hard business. It's a hard life. And to make it so they only make half of their money because they took an L, whether it was a war or not, is shit. They should be paid their full prize. That's garbage. It's a bad precedent that got set up in my era, and I hate it, and I'm avidly against it. It should somehow, some way, It needs to be rectified, but it's not going to happen with people accepting the terms of fights. You know, Masvidal, John Jones, Conor McGregor, all stood strong and said, you have to pay me what I'm worth or I will not fight. And as it played out, especially for Masvidal, who's the only one of the three that has come through as of yet with a fight, he got a full renegotiation, he got a full purse, etc. You know, I think the bigger names, when they put their foot down, they need to keep their foot down. A lot of these guys are set for life. John Jones is set for life. Conor McGregor is set for life. I don't know how George is doing, but I would assume he's not far off. Nate Diaz, set for life. These are the guys that make the biggest draws and make the company the most money. So these are the guys that have.
But Nate, you're talking about Nate Diaz. He freaking was. Dana freaking hated him for
yeah, man,
for first 30 of his fights.
Yeah,
they couldn't stand them.
20K.
Yeah,
and only got to renegotiate because he took a last-minute fight against Conor McGregor.
Right.
Like what, dude? George's fight. They offered him Usman first, and he turned it down because they wanted to cut his contract in half because Usman didn't sell as well as him. That's shit. That shouldn't even be an option, man. Yeah. That's terrible.
Yeah.
I signed a contract because I'm worth it. That's why you offered me that money. Now you want me to take a pay cut because my opponent can't sell? That has nothing to do with me. I sell. Where's my money? You know?
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's what it comes down to. You know, they want people that are going to sell, seats or pay-per-views.
When we look at major sports, right? NBA has a 51% player payout. NFL has a 49% player payout. Major League Baseball has a 50% player payout. MMA has a 13% player payout. 13. What is going on?
I thought it was lower than that. Are you counting? Are you averaging Bellator and all the other ones? Because I thought the UFC paid out even less than that.
I don't know.
What's boxing?
Boxing, man. In boxing, fighters get to co-promote. So it's like when you watch a movie and you see George Clooney as the star actor, the executive producer, a screen editor. He now gets percents and all those things. Boxing is the same. As much as I am not a fan of Floyd Mayweather wrote the playbook. He is his own promoter. That guy gets a paycheck. He also gets the lion's share of the earnings because it's his show. He is his own matchmaker, which is illegal. It is illegal to matchmake fighters you manage and or yourself. But somehow it's done because boxing is boxing. He books his own venues. He sells his own pay-per-view. Floyd Mayweather only fights for TMT Productions. That's it. So yes, his purse is $20 million, but at the end of the fight, he makes $150.
Right.
Because boxing is set up like that.
But I mean, we're talking about the regular guy. We're not talking about Floyd Mayweather, but we're saying
my knowledge on boxing is so-so.
Well, these guys would know, I would think. You guys cover boxing a lot.
Yeah, look, in general, the name fighters that are named and ranked or whatever, they're getting paid significantly more than UFC fighters.
Yeah.
I know in boxing, typically your first fight is like $100 a round. And most of the time, if you are not the opponent, your purse goes to the guy you're fighting because he is the opponent. I know multiple guys whose names I won't mention that fought pro fights for $1 or $0 because their purse went to their opponent. That's how they got their opponent.
Wow.
Right. Sometimes they have to pay the expenses of the opponent. Yeah. So at the end of the day, they're just getting, they're getting the win. They're getting their record boosted financially. They could be making nothing.
Back in the day, Howard had a lot of boxers that trained at American Top Team. One of them was a big heavy. I can't remember his name for the life of me, but his record was very skewed. He was like 13-50 or something. And I remember watching him spar and watching him hit pads, and he was very talented. And I'd watch him fight, and he would just keep his hands up, take shots, cover up, throw a couple back and never throw shots like he did in sparring, never throw shots like he did on the pads. And he would lose decisions, or he'd, get knocked out on body shots or something. And I remember asking him, like, dude, you're so much better than this. Like, what is this? And he's like, I had a run and then I lost a fight. And they're like, you're done.
Yep.
So what happened was he lost a couple fights, over time. Like, I don't know how his record played out, but it basically got to a point of, hey, if you start winning again, you'll never fight again. If you want to get money and you want to get paid, this is the avenue you're on. You don't have a shot at being a champ with 3 losses in boxing. Game the fuck over, bro. Make your money fighting up-and-comers, hot talents, and if you take a W, we're going to have a really hard time bringing you back.
Wow.
Yep.
Sparring partner.
We've seen that happen to people.
Yeah, man, it's a dirty part of the business. Like, y'all saw that 7-second knockout that happened last week?
Yeah.
Oh, forget about it. That was crazy.
Bro, that was a girl who had 5 fights. She started boxing at 39.
Yeah.
Right? Against a woman who in her last fight beat an Olympian. Like,
jeez.
Your title holder.
What?
She has 2 belts.
Golden Boy Productions, man.
bro, that shit's so dirty. Like, how it's not criminal, I don't know.
I'm surprised the commission would allow something like that to happen.
Hey, bro, boxing's boxing, bro. The commissions they're boxing commissions. They're not fight commissions. They're not MMA commissions. They are boxing commissions. Why do you think judging is so terrible in certain states?
Yeah,
there's more to that story. Her promoter is actually her husband.
The one who won or lost?
The one that lost.
Jesus.
Oh.
Okay, and this guy
he's in the doghouse.
is he's bad news. There was another article where he was working with an athlete. He put someone else in danger who was in the same position, someone who shouldn't have any business fighting in the ring. And so this was not his first time doing this. So if there's no repercussions, towards that guy,
It probably won't be.
if not to the matchmaker, then that's crazy. That's crazy. And I would think that Eddie Hearn was just he just went on. He did an interview. He was talking about women's boxing and how it's really on the up and up. And he's saying that women fighters are exciting, and in some cases they fight harder than the men do. And he wants to see more of those qualities in some of the male fighters. He was saying that women fighters, they'll always take a fight, because the pool is a little bit smaller, and they'll take whatever fight they can get. And they're just, they're not someone who's just going to sit on the sidelines and wait for the right fight.
That's right.
He was also saying how they listen to their corners more. Whatever the corner says, throw more jabs or whatever, go out there and they'll do it. So he would.
Ben, thank you so much for coming on our show.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
It was great having you. Last words from Ben Stark.
Hey, get ESPN Plus, The Contender, Tuesday, August 4th, 8 p.m. Kevin Siler versus Ken Cross. It's the first fight on the card. Watch it. It's going to be amazing. Check me out on Instagram, Ben Stark HJJ. Check out my gym, American Top Team Palm Beach Gardens, ATT PBG on the gram. Check out Kevin Siler, MMA. He's a talented prospect. He's been getting watched for a couple years now. He's going to make a ton of noise. It's going to be great. If you are in the Palm Beach area and you're looking to do some training, hit me up. Happy to have you guys. Dude, thanks for having me on, Gerardo. You're the man. Thank you for making that video. You're the best. Matt,
thanks, bro.
Thank you both very, very much for having me. You guys are awesome. Big up.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for coming on. I'm going to have you on again for sure.
Awesome, man. Sorry for talking so much.
Oh, no.
No problem.
That's the kind of guests we like.
Excellent. Guys, you guys are great. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Ben.
Have a good one.
Have a good one.
See you guys later. Bye-bye.
All right. So, Steve, here's
sir.
the deal. I got the phone right here, right?
Yeah.
So Ben had to go, right? I saw that.
Yeah.
You texted, all right? So you
Yeah.
say, okay, we got to go. But if you cut me off mid-sentence,